Hey there, I'm Julie Broad of Revenue.com with a real estate investing video tip for you. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the most common objections that you might hear when you're raising money. Working with a client, and he hasn't done a real estate investment deal yet. And he's working to raise money because he has part of a down payment, but not all of it. So he needs somebody to work with to come up with his 20% down. Now he's been working on this for a while, and he kept hearing objections or questions about his experience. Finally, I said, "Do you think you have enough experience?" Boom. The issue was not other people doubting him. The issue was him doubting himself. So first and foremost, when you're handling objections, note the objections you're hearing over and over, because it's probably a good sign that it's something you're worried about and it's coming out. Somehow it magically, those things that are in the back of your head somehow magically come out of the mouths of the people you're talking to in a lot of these cases. So that's the first thing. So no matter what I tell you in terms of handling objections, if that's happening repeatedly, there's something else you need to do. In his case, we had to sit down and strategize. What can you do to get your first investment property so that you feel like a real investor? Because that was the heart of his particular issue. But let's talk about how you might be handling common objections and messing it all up, because there's a few things a lot of real estate investors commonly do. One of the big ones is when somebody says, "Well, I think the market could go down." Now, as a real estate investor who's probably done a lot of research and you've done a lot of spreadsheets, your inclination may be to tell them all about the reasons why the market won't go down, the economic fundamentals driving the economy in the area, all the new people moving in, etc., etc. It's not the winning approach to handling objections. The best thing you can do for an objection like that, and a lot of objections, is first of all to pause, almost in your head, count to 3, and then calmly seek to clarify why they're asking what they're asking. So in that particular case, yeah, that could happen. What makes you say that? And then understand where they're coming from. Because if you try to convince them otherwise and they have a really firm belief in it, then it's probably not going to work out. It's probably not going to work out. If you've ever tried to convince somebody that they're wrong, how did that work out? So a much better approach is just really relaxed and calmly just say, "Yeah, what makes you say that? Do you think the market's going to go down?" Right? Understand where they're coming from. I'm not saying always evade their questions, because you do eventually want to showcase your expertise, but listen to where they're coming from first. Another one that a lot of people will fall apart on, if you will, is in a joint venture arrangement where perhaps you're looking to somebody to put in all of the initial investment capital required, and in exchange you'll do the work. Well, if you're not putting money in, they might say, "Well, you're putting all the risk on me, and why should I put in all the money if you're not putting any in?" Well, interestingly, this is an objection that you do not hear once you know how much value you bring to the table. We have not heard this objection in years, and coaching clients that we've worked with, once they really own their value, they don't hear it either. But in the beginning, you probably will hear it. Now, when you do hear that, you may try to convince the other person that you are bringing a ton of value to the table. You may bore the heck out of them with the long, painful list of all the things that you oversee and do. Not the best approach. The best approach is to say, well, they're looking to invest with you in the first place because you can give them a really good return on their money backed by a cash flowing asset, the rental property. So a much better approach is to take it back to what's most important to them. So if you've done it right, earlier in the conversation, you've learned that they would be very happy with a 10% return. So when they say, "Well, you're not putting any money in," your best response is to say, "Well, earlier you mentioned that you'd be happy with a 10% return, and what we're discussing here is likely to come closer to 15%. Are you no longer happy with that return on the money that you'd be investing? Take it back to the most important thing. What's most important to them, because you've screened them, you've ensured they're a fit, is the return. It's not how much money you're putting in the deal. Now, there may be other things they're concerned about, like what happens if the roof leaks, and now do they have to put in all the money for everything from this day forward? So you'll need to explain some of the logistics of the arrangement as well. But trying to convince them that you're bringing massive value to the table in exchange for the money, not going to work all the time. Finally, one other one. If somebody, after you've had a conversation with somebody and they say, "This is really interesting, I'd like to think it over." Logically, you're thinking, yeah, you know what? I just asked this person for $80,000. Of course they want to think it over. Yeah, kind of. When they say, "I want to think it over," they already know the answer. So what do? Yeah, you know what? It's a very important decision. I think it's a good idea that you think it over. Do you mind just letting me know what specifically are you going to be thinking over? Well, you know, I'm really not sure that it's fair that you're putting all the money in, or that I'm putting all the money in and you're not. Okay? So if you would have let them walk out of there without asking them what they were going to think over, you would have missed the objection. Because a lot of times, "I need to think it over" is code for no. And no is usually just an unanswered objection. Not always. Sometimes the timing's bad. Sometimes they don't like this opportunity. But often it's an objection that you didn't handle. And a lot of people aren't forthcoming with what's concerning them. So you're going to have to ask to find out. So that's 3 objections. Ultimately, the better you feel about the investment, the more confident you are in you and what you're bringing to the table, the fewer objections that you will in fact hear. But until then, you will need to know how to calmly and confidently redirect the objections so that you're not opening up a whole new can of worms or scaring them away by trying to convince them of something when it's pretty much impossible to convince somebody to believe something else. Cool? Cool. Got lots more tips for you. Come on back, revenue.com. Subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already. Subscribe to this video channel. We've got over 100 and I think close to 150 videos now to help you create a life that you're excited about living using real estate. See you next time.